What's up, everybody? Mark with Ecom Warriors. Welcome to a new video. Today, I'm gonna be talking about LLCs, S-corps. What should you do? Sole proprietorship. What should you do for Shopify? So I'm gonna hop into my computer here, and we're gonna talk about it. All right. So let's get right into it. All right. So you could see here I'm on my computer. And many of you are going to be starting Shopify. Shopify is one of those biggest companies out there that allows you to build a store, okay? And it's the most well-known. It's definitely not the best option, but it's the most well-known. And, a lot of people have the question, should you start with a LLC? Should you start with an S-corp? Do you need some kind of legal documents? Now, before we begin, I'm going to just say, guys, I'm not any kind of lawyer or any kind of, accountant or some kind of legal professional. That's kind of like my disclaimer. So take my advice with a grain of salt and do your own research. But I'm here to share my personal experiences. At the end of the day, that's really all I could do. So I'm going to share my personal experiences, and you guys could kind of do what you want with that. So just as a quick story, I started selling on my own without any kind of LLC. This was many, many years back when I first started, without an LLC, without an S-corp. I just couldn't afford it at the time. When things kind of carried on to the next level and I started filing my taxes and things like that, that's when I first got my LLC. Now, the benefits of an LLC, of course, keep in mind the disclaimer. The benefits of an LLC is that if you operate your business, right, any kind of income that you're making under an LLC, you have the ability to make some write-offs, but most importantly, it's self-protection. So you're protecting yourself from any kind of liability, aside from insurance, of course. So what the LLC is going to do is, let's say you're making $100,000 a year off Shopify and you're a beginner, right? And you get an LLC. That LLC will, if you're operating, of course, business under that LLC will kind of protect you from liability. Meaning, let's say you bought a car, you bought under your own name, of course. Let's say you bought a car and you have $5,000 in the bank account. You spent all the $100,000 on whatever you spend it on, an apartment, clothing, whatever it might be. Well, let's say you sell a supplement. Like in this picture, I could see herbs and stuff. Let's say you sell something and it kills somebody, okay? And when it kills somebody, people are now going to come after you to be sued. Well, they can't really come after you as a person because you are operating business under that LLC. So what they're going to be coming after is the LLC and its entities, right? Or excuse me, its assets. So the entity itself is the LLC, and they're going to be filing a lawsuit against the actual LLC. So generally, it's protection, self-protection, protecting your personal assets. If you didn't have an LLC in that case, you could lose everything you've owned if you get sued for something like that. Now, lawsuits don't happen every single day for regular business owners. If you're doing something shady, if you're doing something weird, I would just encourage not even get an LLC, just cancel that business. Do something that's legit, that's good, that helps people, and it's a legitimate product at the end of the day. You don't want to open yourself up to lawsuits that are just unnecessary, okay? That's the first plan of action. But, an LLC is definitely something that's okay. It's definitely good. For example, I know somebody who's selling camera gear, and it was like a little piece of the camera gear. There was like a baby that choked on it, and thankfully nothing happened to that baby. However, that person could have been opened up to a lot of liability. But if you have an LLC, you're protected. Let's talk about an S-corp, which is what I graduated to, and I, got rid of the LLC into the S-corp. The S-corp has many different benefits. First, you're taxed once, so it's a pass-through tax type. And of course, I'm not a tax expert or a lawyer of any sort. So, like I said, don't take my information fully. Kind of do your own research. But with an S-corp, you are essentially making yourself as an employee of the business. There's a whole lot of benefits to that, but any kind of expense that you have that's somewhat business related is tax, is a tax write-off. It's tax deductible. So let's just say you have an S corp, and you're doing Shopify, okay, and you're making $100,000 a month, and you're enjoying yourself, right? You have an S corp. Right? Let's say you're the only employee of that business. You're doing the customer support. You're doing the whatever, a Shopify store may need. You're doing the design, you're doing the ads, you're doing everything, right? Well, of course, you have the obvious write-offs that are like certain expenses like ads, certain expenses like the Shopify monthly fee, the product fees, things like that. But you also have other kinds of write-offs. So, for example, you buy a computer to operate your business on. That's a tax write-off. You maybe you spend the day out networking with other entrepreneurs. That's a tax write-off, right? And what if you go buy them lunch or whatever, just keep the receipts. That's a tax write-off. If you buy a car and your branding of your store name is on that car, that's also a tax write-off. And there are many ways to deduct taxes and things like this. Like I said, I'm no expert, so I'm not the guy that you guys should watch for that. But this is just things to be aware of. Of course, a corporation will have that same protection that an LLC will have. Generally, it's a little bit cheaper to create a LLC than it is an S-corp. S-corps are a little bit more jam-packed, and when you're filing taxes at the end of the year, they're a lot more complicated, but they're both very beneficial. Let's finally talk about the last version, which is essentially you doing business for yourself as a just an individual. What's going to happen is if you don't have an S-corp or LLC, number one, you're opening yourself up to liability, which is not necessarily a bad thing if you think that you're perfectly fine. Of course, you're always vulnerable, but be aware of that. Any assets that you might have. What I do recommend for the average person, this is just like I said, my recommendation, please don't live by this. Like I said, general disclaimer is that, the average person doesn't need an LLC or an S-corp right away, because the average person is not making money right away. But when you see that you're making some kind of income, it's good to make that investment and just get it done, okay? I'll have some links in the description box below of different services that you can get the S-corp done, you can get the LLC. In fact, where I got mine done, you don't have to leave your door, you just do it all online and it'll be taken care of for you. But when you're doing it like a sole proprietorship style and you're just doing it alone, you're getting taxed on that money and you can't really write it off. It's kind of like a side income. As as an individual who's just making this kind of income, you're going to be taxed pretty heavily, and of course it varies. I don't know who's watching this. Maybe some people are watching this in India or whatever. I'm talking about this from an American perspective, so I can't really speak for a lot of the other countries out there. But generally, if you're doing Shopify, and if you're moving some kind of real weight, like making let's put it this way. If I knew somebody who's my best friend, I said, listen, you're making $1,000 a month. At that point, it's time to do something, because I know personally from my personal experience, once you go entrepreneur style, you never go back. You're always going to be doing something that's providing you some income outside of your regular 9 to 5 or whatever you do for your money. Do I recommend LLCs, S-corps? Yes, I would say look into it. But this is just some information just for people to be aware about. Tax season is coming up, so we're getting close. So that's all I got to say. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.